army surplus. Tsunkle shifted nervously, hopping from one foot to the other. The human next to him smiled as she leaned against the hull of the Zhoosh vessel. Relax, Big T. You are going to pop out one of your eyes. Sheila chuckled as she took a deep drag on her vaporizer and exhaled, blowing vapor rings. A state of relaxation is impossible, Tsunkle said miserably. I'm unused to criminal endeavor. We aren't equipped for crime, unlike you humans. And yet here you are. Tsunkle looked around nervously and checked his sensors. Sheila laughed at him. Jesus, Tease, she smirked. We're on a rock in the middle of nowhere. There isn't anyone or anything in the whole system. Maybe we were followed. Sheila rolled her eyes. We weren't followed. I checked. It's an empty goddamn system. It's not like we could miss them. They could be cloaked. T, if a cloaked Federation warship were tailing us, they would have gotten us by now. They could be waiting for the cellar. Yep, they could very well be. We are committing a crime, after all. Fun, isn't it? Tsunkle started gulping air anxiously. Oh, by the creators, this was a bad idea. Too late to worry about that now? Sheila chuckled. Besides, isn't a just cause like yours worth a little risk? If you can't handle this, how the hell can you expect to handle the merchandise once you get it? The sensor started flashing, and Tsunkle almost fainted. Sheila pulled out a communicator. Black Dragon, that you? Yep, how's it going, Sheila? Pretty good. The Zhoosh is about to shit himself again, but other than that, we're golden. Great. We are sending a dropship now. Sheila turned to Tsunkle. See, you worry too much. An angular black ship came into view, and Tsunkle started in alarm. That's a Raven! Sheila laughed at him. Yep, good call. That is indeed a Raven-class assault lander. We use a lot of stuff from the Great War. We built so many warships that we haven't really had to build new civilian ones. You will see battleships being used as tankers if you get closer to Sol. So you just disarmed your warships? Disarmed? You are just adorable, you know that? The Raven landed with the silence for which they were known. The hatch opened, and the biggest human Tsunkle had ever seen stepped out. Sheila trotted up, and the two humans performed some sort of body squeezing that looked affectionate. The big human looked over at Tsunkle. That the buyer? Yep, this is TT, this is Johnny. It is an honor to meet you, Mr. Johnny. You got the money? Tsunkle was startled by the abruptness, but he reminded himself that he was dealing with humans and with the criminal element at that. He nodded and produced a small data crystal. Johnny took the crystal, scanned it, and whistled. It is an honor to meet you, too, he replied, and then headed towards the open hatch of the lander, beckoning for them to follow. I have a wide selection of goods, and I think you will be quite pleased, he said with a smile. Johnny opened a crate. Inside were rows of automatic rifles. He picked one up and tossed it towards Tsunkle. Tsunkle grabbed at it, almost letting it fall to the deck. What you have there is the Terran Classic, the AK-47. These have been in use for over 1,000 years, and there is a reason. Your physiology is close enough to ours that you should be able to use them with no modification. 30-round magazine, reliable, completely chemically powered, and will tear right through a personal deflector. They won't show up on sensors, at least at first. We also have armor-piercing rounds specially designed for standard combat armor, right through the screen, then right through the vest. Holy shit! Are these relics? Sheila asked as she caressed one fondly. You think I would be selling relics to a non-human? These are old stock from early independence war production runs on Terra. That is why they have the wooden stocks. We were running low on polymers there for a couple of years. Can I have one? Johnny tossed her an AK, and she squealed in delight. Johnny grinned over at a stunned Tsunkle and opened another crate. These are Model 1911.45 ACP semi-automatic pistols. The high-mass and low-velocity rounds will cut right through deflector belts. The recoil might be a little heavy for a Zhoosh, but you should be able to handle them with practice. Johnny opened case after case of human weaponry showing off shotguns, rockets, and grenades. All of these goodies are completely chemically powered as requested, and all of them are proven effective against Federation, Imperial, and Collective forces, Johnny said proudly. Tsunkle gulped anxiously as he looked at the list that his leader gave him. He started hiccuping. And about the... The hiccups got worse, cutting off his ability to speak. Sheila and Johnny grinned impishly. "Oh, yes." He went to the back and rolled out a trolley with 6 long black polymer cases with bright yellow markings. He opened one. "Here they are," he proudly announced. "Type 7 tactical nuclear weapons. They are fission fusion hybrid explosives. I'm sure you are familiar with these babies from the war." More speechless hiccups. "These are just the warheads, mind you," Johnny continued. "You will have to find a way to get them where you want them to go." Boom. Sheila sighed nostalgically as she ran her fingers along one of the cases. She looked up at Tsunkal with misty eyes. "Oh, you will like these." Tsunkal was about to pass out. The transaction went smoothly, and several more ravens landed loaded with arms. Sheila inventoried the goods and checked off the shipments. That was actually Tsunkal's responsibility, but he needed a little break and was sitting on a crate of AK-47s breathing heavily into a respirator. "Okay, T, you are all set. Everything is bought and paid for. Schematics, tutorials, and the like are on this," she said as she handed him a data crystal. "Hey, Johnny, can I hitch a ride with you?" "Sure thing. Hop on," Johnny replied. Tsunkal was confused. "You aren't continuing to travel with me?" he asked. "On a ship full of illegal arms, including nuclear weapons, that is heading through Federation space? Are you out of your fucking mind? Later, Tater." Sheila waved as the Raven's hatch closed, leaving a desperately gasping and hiccuping Tsunkal holding his head in despair. "I hate humans," he mumbled between hiccups. Damage control. Ambassador John Wintersmith sipped coffee as he watched his holomonitor. Scenes from the Zhush Civil War were playing on just about every Federation news channel. Blown-apart troop transports, shredded habitation pods, crashed landing craft, and of course, pixelated dead Federation peacekeepers had been playing damn near 24 hours a day for the past few days. He smiled. It was the standard Federation clusterfuck. Now the Jewish government forces screwing the pooch he could understand, but the Federation should have learned by now. He turned to an uncensored Federation government feed to watch actual combat footage and nodded approvingly. The Jewish were pretty damn good shots. He had no idea who supplied them, but they had clearly bought the good stuff. They were using frontline hardware, especially those armor-piercing rounds. Those had to be late-generation stuff, at least Mark 12s from the looks of the carnage. The feed suddenly shifted to a static-filled picture of a mushroom cloud rising in the distance. John's smile faded. Who the fuck sold them nukes? One political incident coming right up. He pulled out an edible from the desk drawer and consumed it, savoring every morsel. Grandma made the best brownies. Another mushroom cloud popped up, then another. Fuck. He picked up the analog telephone on his desk and called his secretary. "Good morning, sir. Have you been watching the feeds?" His Kalesh secretary lisped with undisguised amusement. "Yes, I have. Get me in touch with Terran Intelligence." "I've already started the process." John smiled again. Good old Toby. Annoyingly efficient as always. A few minutes later, his phone rang. "Hey, John, this is Helen." "Helen, hi. The Zhush just used nukes. Is there something you need to tell me?" "They didn't get them from us, if that is what you are asking." "Any ideas?" "Nothing confirmed. We do know that Sheila Donovan was recently seen in the company of an unknown Zhush, though," Helen replied. John groaned. "Can we just arrest her already?" "For what, having lunch? We don't have shit on her." "We never have shit on her. You guys are intelligence, right? Can't you just make the problem go away?" Since the shooting stopped, we are avoiding extra-legal solutions, especially after that fiasco on I.O. The best I can do is list her as wanted for questioning concerning matters of Republic Security Category 1, but she has had that dubious honor for a while. "Ambassador, Counselor Keshalta is here wishing to speak to you urgently," Toby said over the intercom. "I bet he does. Helen, I gotta do damage control over here." Helen cut off the communication. "Toby, let the Honorable Counselor in and make some cream tea." "Will do, boss. The Honorable Counselor prefers peshka. I'll brew that instead." "I do not desire refreshment. I require answers!" Keshalta screamed loudly as he stormed in, his crests fully engorged and pulsing. John rose and bowed politely. "Counselor, to what do I owe the honor of your presence?" John said with amused courtesy. The sight of an enraged polka is something that always tickled him. Pissing them off was sort of a hobby of his. The edible was starting to kick in, and he had to keep himself from giggling. "You know exactly why I am here." "Calm down, counselor. Anger does not facilitate constructive communication." John laughed. Shalta used that exact same line on him once, and he loved rubbing his face in it every single time he could. Shalta became silent, shaking with rage. "Let's try using our grown-up inside voices. Now let's try this again. To what do I owe the honor of your presence?" "As you are no doubt already aware, Terran combat arms and fusion explosives have been used by Zhush insurgents in their illegal insurrection." "Yeah, the Zhush dragoons and your peacekeepers are getting their asses handed to them by some miners. I've been watching the feeds. They are pretty good." "You admire them. Now, inside voices, please." John giggled despite his best efforts. A Muppet with inflatable peckers popping out of his head was just too much. "To answer the question that is, odds are the reason for gracing me with your most august personage is no. No, we did not supply the rebels, and no, we do not know who did. The next answer is yes. Yes, we are looking for them, and yes, we are taking this seriously." John gave Shalta a pleasant, lightly stoned smile. This was a fantastic batch of brownies. He made a mental note to call Grandma. Shalta quivered with rage. He hated Terrans with a burning passion. Every time he saw one, he immediately remembered slithering over the dead and clawing his way past the living as he surged towards an escape pod in a blind panic with Terran Marines right behind him, calmly slaughtering their way through the station. That was horrible, but what truly tightly bound hatred to his heart was the short message burned into the hull of his pod as he made good his escape. "Your life has been spared by the Terran Republic." He blinked hard, trying to swallow the hate and rage and remain professional. The war was over and he had to try to move on, but each and every time he saw a Terran, it all came back, and John was perhaps the worst. Most species chose their most polite, most diplomatic, most deferential individuals to be ambassadors to the Federation, but the Terrans, they sent John. To use a human term, John was an asshole. Shalta, in his studies of the human's language, had always struggled with human idioms, slang, and obscenity, but the word asshole he understood. John was an asshole. He wasn't posted as ambassador in order to encourage peace and mutual understanding, but more as an enduring "go and fuck yourself" directed to the Federation. "Go and fuck yourself" was a phrase Shalta was also familiar with. It was used by John quite often. What he hated most about John were the medals. He wore all of his decorations denoting his experience and prowess in battle on his diplomatic uniform. Shalta had informed himself regarding the meaning concerning each and every one and the bloody swath across the galaxy they represented. The one that was the absolute worst was the stylized silver human skull and crossed femurs on a notched black obsidian background. It was the mark given to a Marine raider, with each notch representing 10 kills. He had seen them before, killing their way across his homeworld in their expressionless-powered exoskeletons. John had a lot of notches. Shalta checked the brainwave scanner he had implanted in one of his manipulators. As usual, the brainwaves from John were utterly unusable. He did not know whether it was some primitive technology or archaic martial discipline, but John could change the baseline of his mental state seemingly at will. He could somehow make everything seem funny to himself, regardless of the gravity of the situation. All he could detect was mild euphoria and hilarity. "Do you honestly expect the Federation to believe that you do not know the origin of those fusion bombs?" John looked over at Shalta and laughed. "Do you have any idea how many nukes we produced?" "No. How many?" It wasn't a rhetorical question. "We have absolutely no idea how many we made. We were cranking those babies out as fast as we could, and we made them by the millions." John looked at a data screen. "From what we can gather, the ones the Zhush freedom fighters are using are between a Type 5 to a Type 8, he continued. "Those were belt-fed into mass accelerators and sprayed by the dozen. You remember, right? You are from where? Zaran 7, isn't it?" John smiled, revealing his wide, fang-laden mouth. Shalta lunged forward with a primal hiss. Pincers splayed as he nearly leaped over John's desk. John rose from his desk, still wearing that toothy grin. "Why, Counselor, you surprise me. Where is that stately decorum for which the Federation is known? You're acting almost Terran. Not that I object, of course." He snickered. Green phlegm started bubbling from Kay Shaltaw's primary mouth, dripping onto John's desk. Kay Shaltaw, shuddering with rage, drew himself up to his full height and, without bothering to wipe the rage phlegm from his face, said, "The Federation is disinclined to believe that the distribution of fusion weaponry to those acting against the Federation is accidental and is in fact deliberate. We view this as an act of war." "Okay, sounds good to me," John said with a giggle. Kay Shaltaw blinked in shock. "Do you not realize the gravity of my statement?" "Sure do." John picked up his toppled cup, went to the coffee maker, and poured another drink. "Let me explain something to you." He took a long, slow sip. "A lot of Terrans think that the war ended way too soon, including myself. A lot of us think that we should have kept going, myself included. A lot of us, including myself, view sneak attacks, especially when we were already weakened due to a conflict with the collective, to be a dick move and would love, truly and deeply love, watching the entire Federation burn. So forgive me if I don't throw myself down in front of you begging for the almighty Federation to spare us lowly, backward, primitive humans." John advanced towards a bubbling and spluttering Kay Shaltaw. "If you want to declare war, go right ahead. I'm begging you to do it." He continued his advance, backing Kay Shaltaw into a corner. "So the way I see it, you have two choices. You can declare war over some surplus from a war that you started coming back to bite you in the ass, or you can take your bullshit threats and fuck off." Kay Shaltaw hissed and spat a huge wad of rage phlegm at John, splattering his uniform, shoved him out of the way, and stormed off. "Are you certain you don't want to stay for tea?" John called after him with a giggle. An enraged scream echoed down the hall. John grinned, took off his now slimy jacket, and flopped into his chair. "Diplomacy is hard," he said with a smile as he reached for another edible.